Hello, my beautiful babies, and welcome to Chapterhouse Dune Club Session 2. Yes, we are starting off with a bang. For Session 2, you need to have read pages 96 through 204. And the last sentence of the last chapter of this session is, "We will dine together, sister. For the moment, you are more important than anything else." I know that's technically two sentences, but it sounded weird just to have one of them. "We will dine together, sister. For the moment, you are more important than anything else." So read until you get to that, or page 204 if you're reading from this particular mass market paperback. There is a link in the description if you would like to order this. So on Amazon. So exciting. And also, I just want to remind all you cats and kittens that we still, oh shit, hold on. We have merch for sale. It is hidden, but I'm going to bring it up. There we go. The final Dune pack is still on sale on danikixix.bigcartel.com. If you would like to get a final Dune pack, you can get it on that store website. And in the pack, you get a sticker sheet, a Murbella bookmark, a couple enamel pens, 2 to 3, depending on which option you pick. And you also get a fridge magnet, Dune Club fridge magnet. So check that out. Alrighty, enough of the merch shilling. Hold on, let me go back. Dang. Okay, here we go. Let's, oh, wait, hold on. Oh, gosh. Before we get into session 2, let's just do a little recap. The pieces are lining up, the plan is forming, and an action is taken. On Chapterhouse, Duncan's ability as a human computer and the memories of his serial lifetimes are finally exposed, and Odrade begins using him as her mentat. He agrees, but is secretly searching for a way to escape. Meanwhile, the last Leilaxu master Scytale has his own plans for the Gola, and continues to search for a way of escape so he can bring the Leilaxu back to life using cells stored in a secret nullentropy capsule hidden in his chest. The deprogramming is working on Murbella, and she finally admits to herself that she respects the Bene Gesserit and wants to become one of them. And Odrade is busy managing these 3 wild personalities while overseeing the operations of Planet Chapterhouse and trying to save the Bene Gesserit order from extermination. She's got a lot of responsibility on her shoulders. She commits them all when she sets her tricky plan into motion. Duncan must restore Teg's memories ASAP. A spot of luck appears in the form of an exiled Reverend Mother stationed on a punishment planet who brings news of a possible alliance with people from the Scattering against the Honored Matres. Using this woman, the Reverend Mother Superior conspires to lure the Honored Matres into a meeting on Junction. And speaking of Junction, Lucilla is alive and comes face to face with the Spider Queen, the great Honored Matre, and lasts many rounds of interrogation with her until she oversteps her boundaries and is killed by Dama. All right, so now let's get into it. Chapter 10, I'm not another Kwisatz Haderach. And I did enjoy the header for this one. The writing of history is largely a process of diversion. Most historical accounts distract attention from the secret influence behind great events. Oh, how will we ever know the truth? Will we ever know the truth? It's debatable. What is the truth? So we are with Duncan, and he is still caught in the captivity of the No ship he used to escape from Gamu. So he's been on this ship for many years now. And since leaving his home planet, he has grown into a lanky man. He's definitely not eating enough. He's looking a little haggard. His questionable psiona genes make it impossible for the Bene Gesserit to let him leave, lest he be found by a guild navigator and expose the whereabouts of Chapterhouse. He lives here with Murbella and Scytale, but Scytale is in a separate wing that is separated with a silencing barrier, and they occasionally see each other, peer at each other from across this barrier here and there. And Duncan is restless. He goes to explore his prison, looking for anything that will help him make an escape. And even though he's been training males in sexual bondage techniques for the sisterhood, he fears the day that the sisters discover that he is a mentat and has access to the memories of all of his serial Gola lifetimes. Miniseries, Bell at the forefront, will call for his execution on the off chance that he may be another Kwisatz Haderach. As he roams, he thinks on his greatest hater, Belanda, a fellow mentat, and believes Reverend Mothers do not make the best mentats. Her absolute loyalty to her sisterhood, any absolute, is a serious flaw in a mentat who must remain open and cultivate their naivete. And again, we talked about this last session, but again, here we see naivete, cultivate that naivete, whether you're a Reverend Mother, whether you're a soothsayer, whether you are a mentat, whatever it is, Frank Herbert feels like you should cultivate that shit. There's also some interesting little tidbits about being a mentat that I enjoyed. One of them was, you were a primitive tracker, able to read minuscule signs, tiny disturbances in the environment, and follow where those led. At the same time, you remained open to the broad motions all around and within. You are never truly a mentat. That is why we call it the endless goal. So it's kind of like meditating, where it's like you practice this art. Everything you do, everything you sense and say is experiment. No deductions final. Nothing stops until dead, and perhaps not even then, because each life creates endless ripples. All these mentat insights I found very fascinating. Duncan wanders through his quarters, and he can still smell the sex in the room from his sexual collision with Murbella the night before. This man is surrounded by women, the honored matre to whom he is addicted, O'Drade, the Atreides who calls for this lifetime's debt of loyalty, and Shiana, the youngest ever Reverend Mother and co-conspirator who he doesn't fully trust. And where is Lucilla? She was a big part of his life growing up. Who knows where she is? Unthinking, he continues walking until he finds himself in the great hold that held the sandworm when they left Dune. This is the place where Idaho has been experiencing strange visions of a net shimmering in a molten sky that parts to reveal an old couple in antique clothing working in a flower garden. They, too, eventually notice him and converse about him, wondering how he can look through and see them. While thinking of these visions, O'Drade comes up behind him and startles him out of his reverie. She has just come from speaking with Murbella and has found out that Murbella is pregnant again. Can't stop, won't stop. O'Drade has come to tell Duncan that Shiana wants to visit him and to discuss the tyrant. Idaho plays dumb. What could I possibly add to Shiana's knowledge of Leto II? I mean, she has her other memory. She can go back there. She's got the psiona genes. What could I tell her about him? O'Drade cuts to the chase and calls him out. We believe you remember more than one Gola lifetime. Come, Duncan. Are you a mentat? Duncan knew this day would come. And instead of denying it, he admits it by telling her that he and Leto had indeed figured out the problem of sand trout in one of his many lifetimes. But he thinks of them as one continuous lifetime, same as the Leilaxu masters. It's weird. There is no way that they could have incorporated all the cells from all of his Gola bodies, and yet he has all the memories. O'Drade is delighted by this admission and correctly guesses that he required his serial memories during his first sexual encounter with Murbella. Duncan hotly denies being another Kwisatz Haderach. I'm not one. Odraid's like, okay. The Reverend Mother Superior questions him on his knowledge of axolotl tanks and tells him that they have their own system going, but as of right now, they still don't know how to produce spice using the axolotl system. She also tells him that all of the newly scattered sisters are carrying sand trout and the knowledge of how to create their own axolotl systems. One way or another, by worm or by tank, there will be spice, possibly on many planets throughout the universe. There was another little thing that I really liked. Odraid said to him that rules are often an excuse to ignore compassion. I really liked that. And he's like, oh, you don't have a conscience. What are you talking about? He's being such a bitch to her. Oh, man. Odraid puts up with so much. She tells him, I like you much better when you're openly mentat. And he says, I distrust your liking. And I love that she laughs at him and is like, oh, how like Belle. How like Belle you are. Oh, you distrust my liking. You guys are enemies, but you sound a lot alike. They go back to his quarters, and she shows him a scene of Chapterhouse's growing desert and discusses the sand trout's evolution. The Bene Gesserit have gambled a large amount of spice from their finite stores to provide a catalyst to produce the worms. But there's no worms yet. But fingers crossed. Any day now. We're waiting. Leto told you about the catalyst, didn't he? What else do you remember of him? Duncan says to her, he killed me so many times. It's an ache when I think about it. I love that. I think that's so funny. They then discuss Shiana's upcoming potential role as a living religious figure, and Odraid enlists Duncan's help in making this assignment less dangerous for her. And for his help, he asks her to fully open their data systems to him. She formally asks him to be her mentat, and says that she will discuss his request in council. He tells her, I must think like an honored matre. And she replies, who could do it better than one who lives with Murbella? I thought that was extremely cute, their little banter. Chapter 11, a consultation on mutual problems. So we're switching perspectives to Scytale, another prisoner of the No Ship, and he feels safe in the knowledge that the Bene Gesserit truthsayers cannot read him and knows his god will help him in his extremity. And he still has his ace in the hole, the Duncan Gola, which he believes he can utilize against the Sisterhood. He knows the witches do not share his great belief, by the way. He is not to be fooled. And he also knows that God had introduced a holy accident into the Leilaksu plan for this Gola, but God always had larger designs, and it was the task of the faithful to fit themselves into God's plans and not demand that God follow the design of humans. I like that. Scytale is the youngest master in the highest Kel, and he is ready for this ultimate task. Every master carries a secret null entropy capsule in his chest, preserving the seed cells of his fellow masters, of face dancers, technical specialists he's going to need, and others, including Paul and Cheney. Oh, what it had cost in searching garments of the dead for random cells. And not only does he have Paul and Cheney's cells, he's got Duncan Idaho, the original, Thufir Hawat, Gurney Halleck, Stilgar, and more. So there is a potential that all those motherfuckers could be brought back to life. Like Duncan, he is cataloging flaws in the No Ship's defenses and planning his escape. Over his serial lifetimes, Scytale has collected mad skills and lots of knowledge about lots of shit, including Ixian No Ships. And these skills will help him on his mission to bring the Leilaksu culture back, better than ever. Another thing he's been studying over the eons has been the Bene Gesserit, but they still confound him at every turn. He blames the witches for the destruction of Arrakis, the land of his holy prophet, and of the Leilaxu planets. Odrade comes to visit with him after he calls for a consultation on mutual problems, aka bargaining. Scytale wants Face Dancer's servants and his own ship system console. Yeah, right. Odrade wants more technical information on the axolotl tanks, specifically how to produce melange. He's not going to budge on that either, and neither one of them is willing to give the other one what they want for their price. Odrade takes him on a stroll outside the nose ship, and they watch a Bene Gesserit burial in the orchard. No obituaries, no rituals, no eulogies, just a body wrapped in cheap cloth, placed vertically in the dirt with an apple tree planted over them. The location of the body is recorded on a cenotaph found at the corner of the orchards. Scytale is disgusted by this practice and is surprised to hear Odrade hum a little song while she watches the body sliding into the hole. This goes against the idea that sisters typically avoided music. What is she doing? She told me that they don't like music. Here she is humming something. How can you bargain with people whose patterns did not follow an acceptable path? You might think you understood them, and then they shot off in a new direction. They were untypical. He is also confused about how the sisterhood does without bureaucratic systems, and asks Odrade how they maintain themselves without officials and all these records. She tells him a thing needs doing, we do it, and that's how it's done. And there's always someone around who's responsible, and they know who they are. After their apprenticeship, all of our people willingly accept their jobs. Surely you know that bureaucracies always become voracious aristocracies after they attain commanding power. Honored matres have all the marks of bureaucracy. Ministers of this, great honored matres of that, a powerful few at the top and many functionaries below. They always are full of adolescent hungers. Like voracious predators, they never consider how they exterminate their prey, a tight relationship. Reduce the number of those upon whom you feed, and you bring your own structure crashing down. Capture more of them, squeeze them harder. It will just mean quicker extermination. Idaho says they're already in a dieback stage. We remember the relationship between food and an animal called a snowshoe rabbit and a predator cat called a lynx. The cat population always grew to follow the population of the rabbits, and then overfeeding dumped the predators into famine times and severe dieback. Their meeting ends, and he is returned to his quarters, gaining nothing for himself, but not giving anything away either. Still, he's more confused by the witches than ever. Now that he knows the witches use Idaho as their mentat, his next line of attack will be to contrive a meeting with the Gola and use his whistling language on Duncan. The dieback phase, so that's something I think about a lot when, people talk about overpopulation or this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, they're like, oh, we can't sustain. It's like, yeah, we can't. And eventually, if we don't get it together, there will be a dieback stage. It'll work itself out. It's not going to be pretty, but it will get dealt with one way or another. Chapter 12. Some prefer to call it the Seeking. Duncan and Scytale think they have it bad, while Lucilla lives, but as a captive of the Honored Matres. She is being wheeled in front of the Great Honored Matre in a tubular cage with a shigawire netting holding her inside. Sounds really uncomfortable. This is a new room on Junction. This is windowless with acid green walls away from the prying eyes and ears of the Honored Matre court. She is warned, use the voice, and I will kill you. It's just Lucilla, the Great Honored Matre, and a hungry futar purring in a separate cage. Lucilla, too, is hungry. She hasn't been fed in 3 days and has only been taking small sips from a liter john of water, which is almost empty. But the hunger pains aren't nearly as bad as the melange withdrawal that is just beginning to rear its ugly head. And if she doesn't get any spice soon, she will have to kill herself. The great honored matre is curious about Lucilla, so much so that she has set up this meeting between just the two of them so that none of her aides will kill the Reverend Mother for her impudence. Lucilla baits Dama with her suppositions on the creation of futars and the Bene Gesserit theory that the honored matres have been chased back into the old empire by an enemy. The Lampadas horde inside her memory, because remember, she's carrying all of those other memories from Lampadas, they are begging her to quit provoking the bear in front of her. Be cool, bide your time, maybe we can escape. They could potentially provide really great tactical information, very valuable information on the Spider Queen's lair. Lucilla knows that the honored matres have not updated the nonsense defenses outside of this building, and she has also seen that there are enormous hallways where people get lost in this big fucking building and have to use guide pulsars to get them to keep them on track and go where they need to go. The great honor matre suggests that she may keep Lucilla alive if she satisfies her curiosity. During their conversation, Lucilla goes for the chin and insults the woman's weak chin using only compliments. I love this part where it's like she notices Dama has this like little underdeveloped chin and then just like starts like talking shit, but like saying all these nice things like, oh, I bet your lovers kissed that chin. And oh, it is your childhood chin. You should be proud of that youthful remembrance. Dama senses that she is being disparaged, and she feels that she's now at a disadvantage, but she cannot say how. Dama releases Lucilla from her cage and has her sit right in front of her within striking range of Dama's deadly feet. The Reverend Mother is given food and drink, stem tea with a little melange, while she is questioned on the information the honored matres were able to salvage from Lampadas. It's your science we want, witch. With your help, we could achieve utopia. You think science holds the keys to utopia? And better organization for our affairs, yes. Remember, and this she's thinking to herself, Lucilla is, remember, bureaucracy elevates conformity. Make that elevates fatal stupidity to the status of religion. She tells the great honored matre, paradox. Science must be innovative. It brings change. That's why science and bureaucracy fight a constant war. But think of the power. Think of what you could control. Honored matre's assumptions about control fascinated Lucilla. You controlled your universe. You did not balance with it. You looked outward, never inward. You did not train yourself to sense your own subtle responses. You produced muscles, forces, powers to overcome everything you defined as an obstacle. And I was like, these women are the honor matres are very yang, whereas the Bene Gesserit is very yin. Also, it's revealed that the honor matres have no academic centers. Big surprise. Lucilla is questioned about the Bene Gesserit projects with the Leilaxu. She's questioned about the God Emperor. And she is enlightened on the scattering. The scattered ones do not call it the scattering. They call it the seeking. I like that branding. I think that's really funny. The old empire's like, oh, it's the scattering. And then the people out there was like, no, we were seeking. We're not scattered. We're seekers. Lucilla susses out that what this woman is really interested in is if the God Emperor could in fact predict the future, because she is a greedy woman and she wants this ability. Lucilla warns her against that path for the absolute boredom that it would bring. No more surprises ever if you can predict the future. Dama orders the Reverend Mother back into her cage and promises to return to their discussion tomorrow. She throws a chair cushion into the cage to sweeten their rapport. Look what a nice captor I am. And the hungry futar disappears back into the wall, and the great honor matre promises Lucilla that she will not be disturbed until she returns. Chapter 13. How would you like to be a horse? What do you think? Back on Chapterhouse, Odrade has chosen to eat dinner with the student acolytes and their proctors to get her fingers on the pulse of her keep and read the atmosphere. There is so much that can be learned from dining in the Acolyte Hall. And this is also the oldest construction on the planet, built of wood with massive beams overhead, beams that have a 1900-year warranty with new oaks that were planted when the hall was built to provide the wood to replace these beams 1900 years in the future. I love the long-term thinking and planning of the Bene Gesserit. You know, like, we made this place. These beams are huge. They're great. They're going to last almost 2,000 years. So let's just go ahead and plant some oaks. We'll have them ready. We'll give them 2,000 years to grow. And then we'll have our replacement beams when we need them. Tonight, the Reverend Mother Superior takes a seat near the corner of a table beside the western windows, and the acolytes scooch out of the way to make room for her, and they are all carefully watching Odrade without ever directly looking at her. She thinks on that recurring tightrope nightmare, and the acolytes around her stir nervously as though they can sense her disquiet. Tonight's meal is slig pork in soy molasses sauce with fresh green beans and peppers, and a dark red grape juice to drink. By the way, PJ, I don't know if you noticed, but those food descriptions, they're going up. I told you they were going to go up. You've been asking me, where are the food descriptions? You said they were food descriptions. They're starting. They're happening. They're happening now. Odrade thinks to herself that the meal is passable. Slig pork's a little bit overcooked, but the acolyte chefs almost got it right. And I love that, like, her personal chefs aren't making the food for the acolytes. Like, they have acolytes training, you know, to be the chefs. And so the acolyte chefs make food for the acolytes. She also notices that her plate has been adjusted according to her day's nutritional list. She thinks to herself, food is a trap. More addictions. And she's not a fan of the way chefs put things in the food for the good of the diners. The acolytes around her start to chit-chat again at a lower volume than before she walked in, though. And she thinks about her elevation to Reverend Mother Superior, elevated more with the left hand than the right, which is a way of saying she was intuitively brought up versus, like, brought up by choice, like a conscious choice. Mainly, she became Reverend Mother Superior because she was the only one who possessed Terraza's memories as primary. And Terraza is known as the best Mother Superior in their history. Odrade herself is viewed as the strangest Mother Superior in their history. But they're like, but she's got Terraza. Fuck, we gotta keep her. She thinks on Shiana and how she must soon go to her and find out if for sure that this young woman is the one that she needs. And she also thinks on her conversation with Murbella that morning, discussing the transience of everything. The acolyte beside her finds the courage to address her, and Odrade is pleased. This girl is an intermediate third stage acolyte and is the one who has been charged with making a map of the desert's daily growth for the Mother Superior's bedchamber. She repeats her report verbatim to Odrade, which states that due to climate change, she is concerned with the orchards and feels that action must be taken to sustain them, or else they should be abandoned. The girl patiently awaits for Reverend Mother Superior's response, and while she waits, Odrade has a sudden memory of an inept acolyte she grew up with, who is obviously a gene choice. This girl sucks. She's terrible, but she's got some genetic thing that they need and they want to pass on. And one day they were doing thopter training, and the girl is so bad at flying that the instructor takes over her controls before she could crash and kill them all. She asks Odrade then, tell him we have Bene Gesserits and we must be obeyed. And Odrade is just like, stays silent, like, I am not saying shit. And she thinks of the dictum, silence is often the best thing to say. I think that's a really wise, fun sentence. Silence is often the best thing to say. Later, she used humor to teach the girl something about herself, and this memory tells Dar to use humor now. She asks the acolyte, how would you like to be a horse? Odrade wonders why she chose to sit by this random person tonight. Was she subconsciously guided by her wild Atreides talents? Meanwhile, the other acolytes are like, oh man, Reverend Mother Superior is fucking with Streggy heavy tonight. Oh. Odrade masterfully redirects the conversation, asks the girl about the meal, commiserates with her on the painfulness of training. Streggy does not understand about the horse comment and thinks Odrade was possibly intimating that she would have her cooked and eaten for dinner. Odrade busts out laughing. No, girl, like, I am not fucking with you. I just want you to carry a young man around on your shoulders. Like, just literally, like, you can be a horse like that. Streggy accepts the job without hesitation, and it's magic time. Odrade finally asks for her name, and she tells her it's Olana Streggy. And she's like, you can rest easy. The orchards will get more support and be in my workroom tomorrow at 6 a.m. And let's find a replacement for you and start training her to take over those map duties. Odrade returns to her quarters. She's finally done it. She's committed the sisterhood to her tricky plan, a course of action that can no longer be changed. Duncan must restore Teg's memories ASAP. It's cold and it's about to rain, a rarer and rarer thing on Chapterhouse. Sisters will sometimes go out and walk in it despite the cold. Will this be the last rain? Odrade doesn't have the time for that game and wonders how close the nightmare figure with the axe is tonight. But she dare not turn and look. That was the mistake of the Kwisatz Haderach. We are not going to use our prescience, okay? We're going to not look. We can't look. I don't want to know. It's just going to make things worse. Chapter 14. I want to be like them. Murbella is on the practice floor, thinking about her meeting with Odrade earlier that afternoon. The hardest thing for an acolyte to learn is that she must always go to the limit. Your abilities will take you farther than you imagine. Don't imagine, then. Extend yourself. These words cut to Murbella's core, and she reflects on all the cheating that she has been engaging in her whole life, and she despairs over ever rooting it all out. From simulating needs as an infant to gain attention, to regurgitating information on demand, to perform education for the adults in her life. And there's also another really great Odrade quote. She's got so many good quotes in this section, in this session. Educational bureaucracies dull a child's questioning sensitivity. The young must be damped down. Never let them know how good that they can be. That brings change. Spend lots of committee time talking about how to deal with exceptional students. Don't spend any time dealing with how the conventional teacher feels threatened by emerging talents and squelches them because of a deep-seated desire to feel superior and safe in a safe environment. Man, I feel it. Murbella thinks to herself, gods, I want to be like them. She's shocked by this thought and launches herself into her training routine. She's haunted by this new knowledge of her respect for the Bene Gesserit, and she replays Odrade's words and actions. And Odrade tells her, do actions agree with words? There's your measure of reliability. Never confine yourself to the words. Look for the consequences, Murbella. That's how you ferret out things that work. And she's ferreting them out right now. She's like, damn, everything Odrade's been telling me. She's been backing it up. Like, this is such a better system. This is way better than the Honor Matres. Despondent that there is no escape for her new awareness and desire, her shoulders sag and she wanders aimlessly around the practice floor. Oh, she's going through it right now. Idaho finds her and immediately sees that something is off, and she passes out. He catches her and calls for a medic, which arrives in less than a minute. And he's finally like, oh, thank goodness for those calm eyes. A Suk Reverend Mother shows up, examines her, and finds that she isn't just testing her limits, she's going past them. Odrade finds Murbella later in the proctor's ward. Murbella says, I tried to avoid complicating things. And Odrade tells her, trying to avoid complications often creates them. Yes, a lot of truth in that statement as well. Odrade can clearly see that Murbella has been making some decisions and asks her what they are. Murbella sneers, "You let me make decisions." Odrade tells her, "I didn't take your previous conditioning into sufficient account. The honored Montres left you practically incapable of making decisions. Typical of power-hungry societies. Teach their people to diddle around forever. Decisions bring bad results. You teach avoidance." Murbella admits the truth, that she has decided that she wants to be like her. "Marvelous," says Odrade. "I don't believe I've ever tried to kill myself, especially when I was pregnant." And Odrade gets a smile with that little joke. Murbella's like, "Oh, you got me. Oh." Odrade tells her to get her rest and that they will put her in a special class to help sensitize her to her limits, because we take care of our own. Murbella quietly asks in a whisper, "Am I yours?" And Odrade tells her, "Since you repeated the oath before the proctors." Odrade leaves Murbella alone with her thoughts, and she remembers how she had such a shitty, cynical attitude when she spoke the words of the oath. But now, thinking on those words that originally held no meaning for her, everything has changed. And the oath was, if you don't remember, "I stand in the sacred human presence. As I do now, so should you stand someday. I pray to your presence that this be so. Let the future remain uncertain, for that is the canvas to receive our desires. Thus the human condition faces its perpetual tabula rasa. We possess no more than this moment where we dedicate ourselves continually to the sacred presence we share and create." Murbella realizes that she had not been physically or mentally prepared for this moment, and tears flow down her cheeks. She finally means the words that she spoke. It's a thing. It's real. They're right. These Bene Gesserits, they really know what they're talking about. Esteban points out, tabula rasa isn't in Jessica's version. Well, this is, thousands of years later. So maybe they just changed it a little bit. Maybe they tweaked it. Chapter 15, Real Boats Rock. Yes. This is my favorite chapter so far. I really enjoyed this chapter. In our Q&A section, you guys can tell me what your favorite chapters have been, but this one has been mine. And this chapter also starts with a fire header. Laws to suppress tend to strengthen what they would prohibit. This is the fine point on which all the legal professions of history have based their job security. Oh, what a zinger. Oh, you got him. You got him, Frank Herbert, those fucks. These laws, they're just keeping a bunch of fucking assholes in business. Oh my God, you're so right. It's past time for an inspection of Central and all the goings on. And Odrade is prowling around, senior watchdogging, looking for sites of slackness, and especially for areas of responsibility that were running a little too smoothly. Show me a completely smooth operation, and I'll show you someone who's covering mistakes. Real boats rock. Yes, I love that. I love that so much. It's so true. This morning, she is joined by both Belanda and Tamerlane on checking out all of the facilities: the clinic, hospital, the kitchen, the morgue, the garbage control, the reclamation systems, transport and communications, kitchen provisioning, training and physical maintenance halls, schools, all of the living quarters, meeting centers, testing facilities, and more. Okay, they are all over this bitch. Odrade finds a broken curb while they're going around and orders it fixed. The three women discuss the possibility that honored Montres were back in the old empire because they were fleeing something. Anything could be out there in that scattering. Ask what infinity might produce, and the only answer possible was anything. They have no idea. It could be some wild shit out there. They have no clue. Belanda interjects. These speculations are useless. We don't even know if fold space introduces us to one universe or many, or even an infinite number of expanding and collapsing bubbles. I love that Belanda is bringing up the multiverse theory in Dune. Interesting. Love to see it. Odrade is pressing for constant improvements, even tiny ones, in the Bene Gesserit to introduce change in their activities, randomness, no absolute patterns that others could use or that others could find and use against them. One person might not see such shifts in a lifetime, but changes over longer periods were sure to be measurable. And that's one thing that I definitely encourage is small incremental change, because that shit really adds up over time. A lot of people, when they want to make changes in their lives, they want to make these really sweeping changes and they just want to just do something that's totally different from what they've been doing. And I mean, a lot of us have tried to do these things, whether it's like, oh, I'm going to change my diet, or I'm going to start working out, or I'm going to read a book every day, or I'm going to draw every day, or whatever the fuck it is. You know, you're trying to like turn your life around. But then you find that, you know, you start doing it and then you drop off and then you don't keep doing it. And it's like, oh, you know, and so that's why I personally think that doing just small incremental changes in your life, you're just going to do a small thing that's doable. You don't have to like do a 180, you know, and then once you get that small change going and you feel good in that, then you can add another one and then add another one. And then over time, before you know it, oh my goodness, you see real changes. The three women come down the way, a central thoroughfare of Central, and it's a joke. It's a play on the Bene Gesserit way. And I love that they have all these like little jokes they put in their street names. Like the Bene Gesserit are not really known for their humor, but then like they're putting all these weird little jokes in all their street names, which is really cute and weird. They get off at Tipsy Trail, which has been named for a building whose foundation has slightly subsided and now it looks a little bit drunk. You know, it's a little tilted. The only member of the group stepping out of line, like Mother Superior, only they don't know it yet. And they turn down Tower Lane, which is a road lined with one-story buildings. Ha ha ha, we'll name it Tower Lane because it's all short buildings. Like, what? You bitches are crazy. And, oh, wait, hold on. Oh. We're reconnecting. Oh, we're back. We're back. Hold on. We're back. Refresh. Refresh, everybody. Refresh. We're back. All right. Give you guys another minute to everyone to refresh. Get a little goo on my lip. All right, good. All right. Well, I'm going to assume that we're back in business, everybody. Okay, good. Great. And as they turn down Tower Lane, Odrade gets a call on her ear C, which is like, I guess, a Bluetooth. Like, I love that she's rolling around with like a Bluetooth so she can get a call whenever. And Straggy tells her, hey, you want to report on Murbella? She's better. She's fit for assigned classes. Odrade's like, great, put her in the classes. Thanks for telling me. After her call, she asks what Tam and Belle would think if they started naming streets and places after departed sisters. Belle's like, you're full of nonsense today. And Tamerlane says, but they are not departed. But they are, though, is the thing. Like, Odrade's like, there are plenty of sisters who died without getting to share their other memories, like Shuang Yu. And we don't have their memories. They're not still here. So like, it would be kind of cool to do that, but whatever, ladies. Also, I like the moment where O'Drade sees that somebody's died somewhere, and she asks, who died? And then Tamaline's like, oh, it's this guy and this person. And Tamaline always knew who was dead. She always knows, and that's because she's older, and so she really pays attention to that sort of stuff. And I know people who are also like older people who also know like who's dead. They're always telling me about how they go to funerals and they're at a funeral every other week, and I'm just like, damn, like that's a lot. Broken Record Bell starts in again on about the dangers of Duncan, Idaho, a mentat who has serial lives. We gotta kill him. O'Drade ignores Bells and stares off into the distance, noticing all the dust in the air and how it changes the way the light diffuses. The blowing dust and sand crept into every crevice the way water did, but the grating and rasping betrayed its source. The same with Bell's persistence. No lubrication. I got a big laugh out of that. Belle doesn't use any lubrication. She's just in there and she's just forcing her way in all the time, like, her stupid opinions. O'Drade makes a comment, that's desert light. And Tamaline comes up behind her and said, beautiful in its own way. And they're both kind of using their other memories and comparing this light with the desert light that they have seen in other lifetimes. And, it's funny, like I see this thing where, people make fun of Hollywood for tinting, Middle Eastern scenes or scenes that take place in Mexico with like orange. But honestly, it's a real thing. Like when I came to LA, I was like really taken aback by how there is an orange tint because there is so much dust in the air, and it does change the way that light diffuses and reflects. It's real. And then when I leave this place, and when I went up to Scytale recently, it's just like, it's such a shock to me. I'm like, wow, it's so green here and there's no dirt in the air. It's very different. Not to be brushed off, Belanda continues, if you won't eliminate Idaho, then I must protest. You are using him as a mentat. O'Drade looks at her and makes some cute observations about her counselors. Belle, wearing her reading glasses, which magnify her eyes really big. She flaunted a vanity in reverse that announced, I am greater than the devices of that my failing senses require. Tam, on the other hand, never bothered to adjust her body's chemistry or to get any surgical correction for the ever-growing cartilage that had enlarged her ears, her nose, and her chin. Tam would not bow to such vanity. Here's what I am. Take it or leave it. O'Drade is thinking, oh my God, my advisors are too old, and I am too old. Like, we are too old for this. She explains to bitchy Belle that Idaho is a superb mentat, and goes on to assert her plan is to use him less as a mentat and more as an inventor. Her plans need a dash of inspiration. Belle still insists on an analysis before they open their data systems to him, and O'Drade shuts this idea down. Tamaline steps in to ask if O'Drade is refusing counsel. When have I ever refused counsel? I am refusing another of Belle's archival merry-go-rounds. Belle steps in. Well, then in reality, and O'Drade cuts her off. Belle, don't talk to a Reverend Mother about reality. Let her simmer on that. Reverend Mother and mentat, there is no reality. Only your own order imposed on everything. A basic Bene Gesserit dictum. I was laughing really hard about that. Don't talk to me about reality. There is no reality. Oh, so good. The Reverend Mother Superior is so tired of this shit that she thinks to herself she wishes she was born a Roman matron in the long packs of aristocrats or a much pampered Victorian. Frustrated, she calls an end to their inspection and they return to her workroom. One mistake could end us, and I'm about to commit us to a no-return decision. Am I being too tricky? Bene Gesserits generally argue against tricky solutions. Bell continues saying that they must be prepared to kill Idaho at the slightest sign that he's a Kwisatz Haderach, and O'Drade is like, would you two get the fuck out of my office? In that moment, an odd feeling sweeps over the Reverend Mother Superior, and her workroom becomes alien to her. And this isn't the first time she's felt this way. It's happened before when she was eating a chicken sandwich. More food descriptions. And she was like, what is this thing that I'm eating? And it was a chicken liver and onions sandwich on some of the best Chapterhouse bread. I bet Chapterhouse makes really good bread. Tam and Bell notice the shift in her and ask if she's okay. O'Drade masterfully throws them off the scent by attributing it to fatigue. And you both must be equally tired. Both women are taken aback by the affection in her tone and start in on the wrongness of her affection. O'Drade admonishes Bell, affections bother you, but hates don't. Bell is like, I know my flaw. The workroom becomes familiar again, and O'Drade decides to reveal the first step in her tricky plan to her advisors. She's like, look, I know Teg is technically too young, but we gotta risk it for the biscuit. We gotta restore his memories. We need our Bashar to drive the honored matres to extremists so that we can get them to negotiate with us. And we will do this using politics. And they're like, oh my God, like what a plan. O'Drade uses a comm and asks Streggy to bring Teg in. And once the boy's inside, Streggy leaves and waits outside. O'Drade announces to them all that she will send Teg to live with Duncan and Murbella in the No Ship, where Duncan will restore his memories. Teg agrees to go along with this plan, and O'Drade tells him to get Streggy to take him to his new quarters in the No Ship, and he asks if he can ride on Streggy's shoulders, like a horse. O'Drade says, ask her. Impulsively, Teg dashed up to O'Drade, lifted himself on his toes, and kissed her cheek. I hope my real mother was like you. Very much like me. Now run along. So cute. I love that scene. He has no idea that O'Drade is one of his daughters. After he leaves, Tam realizes O'Drade is creating a punishment force commanded by our Mintat Bashar and states they better start growing another one. Like he's probably going to get killed. So maybe we should start growing another Teg Gola right now. They also ask, will Idaho cooperate? He will do what an Atreides asks of him. Hopefully. On to chapter 16. Leilaxu sperm does not talk. Scytale is busy scheming, walking around the No Ship whistling, trying to get the witches used to him whistling, because later he's going to use his whistling language on that Idaho Gola. While he whistles, he mentally sings, Leilaxu sperm does not talk to himself over and over again. These women cannot learn his secrets. They must come to him with gifts. O'Drade popped in earlier on her way over to confer with Murbella, and he's taken several days to compose a sentence to convince the Reverend Mother to give him more freedom. It is a mistake to hobble me. Limits your choices. Weakens you. O'Drade responds, it depends on how one intends to employ the tool, Master Scytale. Some tools break when you don't use them properly. He's so pissed. He's like, fuck. What are your intentions for me, Mother Superior? She tells him to keep him alive and strong. He does not trust her and tells her so as his lunch pops out of the food slot. A white fish sautéed in a delicate sauce with a green salad and a melange-infused water. O'Drade is like, oh, you don't trust us, but you trust me enough to not poison your lunch. So I guess you trust me a little bit. And he's just like, oh. She goes on to tell him how she intends to make the Honor Matres aware of their mortality. People thus made aware truly listen. They hear you. The Leilaxu requests a stimulant drink, and she promises to have it sent to him at once and leaves his quarters. When his drink arrives, it contains an herb from Gamu, and he wonders if she put that shit in there to troll him, reminding him of the planet to poke fun at his earlier comment on economics. And it's like, if so, wow, like these witches, they're so crazy. He longs for a Sagra chamber to bear his soul, but the Yagist is gone and he is the last Mashik. These thoughts tempt him to bargain more openly with the Bene Gesserit, but he stops these thoughts immediately and thinks, no, I must make them pay dearly. There will be no bargaining. Scytale takes a seat and grabs a stim pen, takes a hit, gets zooted, and then fantasizes about the day when he can bring the other Leilaxu back and tell them how he triumphed over the Pawinda with God's help. One day. But yeah, the stim pens. Get all fucked up on stim pens. I mean, I assume that it's like an injection, but now with vape pens. I mean, maybe it's a vape pen. I don't know. But I assume that it was meant to be like a little injection. How does the whistling work with a barrier of silence? Well, that's the thing, limited knowledge. He wants to set up a tryst, like a way, not a tryst, but he wants to set up a meeting to where he can see Duncan without the silencing barrier. So anyways, on to chapter 17. Bezel is bait for a trap. Odrade is walking the halls of Central and mulls over the idea of Bene Gesserit conscience and feels loath to meddle with it. To have a conscience is a part of being human. She looks within and asks herself, so what am I? And her other memory retorts, who asks that question? Odrade laughs out loud at this, and a passing proctor, Proska, stares at her. What? The other woman is waved off with an admonition that it is good to be alive. Remember that. I'll see you later. Haha. I'm sure the watchdogs are like flipping out, like watching this whole scene go down. Odrade, meditating on her humanity, she realizes that she is close to losing it because she is trying too hard to think like an Otter Matre, manipulating and maneuvering anyone I could, all in the name of Bene Gesserit's survival. She knows there are limits beyond what the Sisterhood would do to preserve itself. They would not block the tyrant's golden path. Survival of humankind took precedence over the survival of the Sisterhood. But oh, the perils of leadership in a species so anxious to be told what to do. How little they knew of what they created by their demands. Leaders made mistakes, and those mistakes, amplified by the numbers who followed without questioning, moved inevitably toward great disasters. Lemming behavior. All governments needed to remain under suspicion during their time of power, including that of the Sisterhood itself. Trust no government, not even mine. We should grant power over our affairs only to those who are reluctant to hold it, and then only under conditions that increase that reluctance. Whew. Man, banger, banger, banger. It's just like, Frank Herbert hitting you, man. He's just like, he's letting you know. It's just, I love it. I can't get enough. It's so good. It's like, thank you for this truth. Thank you for these truth bombs, Frank Herbert. Odrade comes face to face. While she's thinking all this, Odrade comes face to face with Belle at an elevator, in a tube lift. The door opens, there's Belle, and Belle's looking at her and she's like, you look strange. And Odrade is just like, I just thought of something to do. Are you getting off? And then just like takes her, gets in her place, and is whisked away from her watchdog advisor. That was so funny. They're like weird little accidental meeting at the elevator. It was cracking me up. Because I love the Belle's just like, like, are you okay, bitch? It's funny. She enters her workroom and meditates on the tyrant's golden path, his manipulations, his preservation of the Bene Gesserit, Odrade's responsibility to the human race, and the tension between retaining her humanity and ignoring it to be able to think like an honored matre in order to protect humanity. What a mindfuck. How long until these terrible women uncovered Chapterhouse's location? It's just a matter of time. Odrade is surprised when an aging Reverend Mother from a punishment planet shows up at her workroom shortly before her lunch break. Enter Dortula, a woman who committed the Jessica crime. She fell in love. She fell in love in her youth and was banished to the very cold and very wet ocean planet Bazell. She's come with a message that is for the Mother Superior's ears only. Dortula. That's a hard one. I think it's Dortula. When I was writing her name, the word processing deal that I was using kept trying to like change her name to Tortilla. And I was like, stop it. It's not Tortilla. It's Dortula. Dortula and 3 Reverend Mother associates from her post have spoken with a band of futars from the scattering. It was a band of 16 futars and 4 handlers. And they wish to ally themselves with the Bene Gesserit against the Honored Matres. And they even tell them about the Honored Matres' little secret hand weapon. Let's see. Esteban says Dortugia is how I do it. Well, this one's a tough one. I looked it up. I don't know. Dortula or Dortulia. Dortulia. Let's go with that. Dortulia. Sounds bleh. Door and Dar. Yeah, exactly. With limited knowledge, that is a better way to do it. Odrade asks the woman about this band. The futars appear to be people fused with cat genetics, and the handlers give the impression of being face dancers, although they have none of the discernible signs. They don't have the pheromones, but like her first impression was like, these are face dancers. The handlers and the futars get along very well, and they have a mutual respect and like of one another. But they would not give up any other information on the scattering. Odrade is intrigued by this exiled sister who looks at her with kindness, a Bene Gesserit flaw that Odrade is happy to see. This woman has a strong, well-composed mind and a toughness from the adversity that she faced in her punishment post. And she was now doing what she could to make up for her past indiscretion and is convinced this offer of allegiance is not a trap. She also sensed this band was disturbed by something that they would not reveal, possibly a threat other than Honored Matres. Bazell is a place where they have introduced these sea creatures whose carapace produces Sue stones, one of the most valuable jewels in the universe. Dortulia is wearing a big one. It's a deeply glowing sea green and mauve stone. Sounds really pretty. It sounds like I think of it as kind of like a cross between like an opal and like a pearl. I don't know. That's what I think of. Anyways, she probably just picked this motherfucker on the beach because like even though they're super expensive on Bazell, I mean, they're everywhere. It doesn't even matter. Sue stones are magnetic to smugglers because they are so small. They're very easily stored items that are worth an enormous sum. Odrade shifts the conversation to more friendly terms and asks the other woman about her interests. Turns out Dortulia collects old coins. She's got 2 Greek in silver and a perfect gold obol. And while she appreciates Odrade being friendly with her, she wants to get back to business. Honored Matres cannot have overlooked my presence on Bazell. Smugglers will sell to the highest bidders. We must assume they have profited from their valuable knowledge about Bazell, the Sue stones, and a resident Reverend Mother with attendants. And we must not forget the handlers found me. Odrade is like, damn, this woman is sick. This is the type of advisor that I want around me. How many more buried treasures are there like this? Like why is she tucked away for mean motives? Like, this woman is so helpful. What are we doing? They both realize the Honored Matres must know about Bazell, but why haven't they attacked then? Dortulia's prime projection is that they want this planet for their own, undamaged. And then Odrade figures out, oh my god, she's a secret mentat too. She's such a rebel. She went, it's so boring on Bazell. There's nothing to do. It's so fucking boring that she went in her other memory and found an ancestor who was a mentat and then taught herself to be a mentat because she was fucking bored because there's nothing to do. And Odrade is impressed and was like, man, we need more women like her. Yes. Maybe the honored matres want this planet because they possibly have amphibian slaves that they want to place there. I mean, why not? I mean, if there's cat people, they could have amphibian slaves. We don't know. Thunder Jeep, that's what I did in lockdown. You taught yourself to be a Mentat. You went to your other memory in lockdown. It's funny. And speaking of slaves, here's another banger quote. It was a pattern the sisterhood had long recognized, the inevitable failure of slavery and peonage. You created a reservoir of hate, implacable enemies. If you had no hope of exterminating all of these enemies, you dared not try. Temper your efforts by the sure awareness that oppression will make your enemies strong. The oppressed will have their day, and heaven help the oppressor when that day comes. It was a two-edged blade. The oppressed always learned from and copied the oppressor. When the tables were turned, the stage was set for another round of revenge and violence. Roles reversed and reversed and reversed ad nauseum. Oh, yes. Excellent quote. Compliments to the chef. Wow. Yes, like so much to be learned here. Just the truth bombs have just been exploding all over this session. A lot of my favorite quotes. These two women come up with a plan. Dortulia will return to Bazel as bait. And when she gets there, she's going to put out the word that she's a banished sister. She's like, oh, I hate the sisterhood. They banished me. Try to lure the honored matres to her. And then when she's speaking with them, she's going to tell them that Odrade wants to come to them with a proposal for submission of the Bene Gesserit. And she's got to try to maneuver it to where they will do this meeting on Junction. Odrade regrets using Dortulia as bait, but it is the best chance that they have. Dortulia agrees to the assignment and asks only that the Mother Superior keep a firm grip on that line she dangles from. The two women prepare for lunch. It's lunchtime. And that is the end of session 2. For session 3, you need to read pages 205 through 304. And the last sentence, the last chapter of session 3 is that essential balance, once learned, did not require the sea to maintain it. That's a good one. It's a snazzy book cover. It is. I really do like the book covers, the new ones that they came out with. They recently updated them, for the new movie coming out. They're like, oh, we got to get hot, sexy new covers. And like, I really do like I don't know who the artist is who did these, but they did a really good job. I like them a lot. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find their name real quick. Cover design and illustration by Jim Tierney. Jim Tierney, you did a great job. You did a great job designing the book covers for the new Dune paperbacks. I love them. Great job, sir. Great job, sir. And so now we are going to get ready to do some questions and answers here on Twitch. But for those of you watching on YouTube, I'll see you next week for Chapter 3. Thank you so much. I love you. Mwah.